I couldn't put a single thing, I couldn't put like a detailed list to what it changed in my life, but it just made me realize that I'm in control and I can make whatever I want happen. I know there's going to be a guy or a girl listening right now that is just one thing that either you and I have said is going to stick with them. And then they're going to have an encounter with either their mum, their dad, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, a complete stranger sometime next week, and they're going to know how to solve that problem.
Yo, what is up, THATFIT gang? Welcome back to another episode of THATFIT Podcast. I got a very, very special guest today. I've been absolutely binging his podcast, Before the Money. He's got guys on there just dropping gems every podcast. So grateful to have you on today, bro. But today's guest is Jack William. How you doing?
I'm fucking smashing life at the moment, man. Loving it. How you doing?
Yeah, good, bro. Thank you so much for coming on, taking time out of your day. Obviously, you're a busy man, and I appreciate anyone that comes on the platform and share their story and obviously share value as well. So obviously, like I said before, with Before the Money, like it's all about providing value in the world. And when I first met you, obviously the story behind that, we met down the floods and stuff like that. We met through Leon, a mutual friend, and he had mentioned that you had a podcast. So instantly I was like, fuck, I have to get this guy on. So yeah, like I said, thank you for coming on. But you know, how's life at the moment? What's been going on? Yeah, sort of introduce yourself.
Yeah, sick. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, man. There's no better way I'd love to spend my, what is it today, Thursday afternoon?
Do you keep track of day? Like, are you good with days and stuff like that?
Kind of. I mean, I've never had a job before, so the idea of a contextual weekday, weekend, it's never really been a thing for me. It's just life, you know what I mean, in its full package. So, yeah, I don't really keep track of days. But because it's a special day today, I'm coming on that
for
fit.
Sure.
I got to keep track of it. Put this 100%. One in the diary. Yeah, it's good, man. I just finished up training down at Burleigh Beach. And then, I'm just pumped to have a good conversation. Life's pretty fucking good, hey. Just finished up 75 hard.
Yeah.
Because I know there's lots of like fitness-orientated people listening. So
sure.
That was an incredible challenge. In more ways than just a fitness challenge. And for anyone who's like semi-familiar with what it is, basically it's 75 days, no cheat meals, two 45-minute workouts a day. One of them has to be outdoors, 4 liters of water a day, 10 pages of reading, a progress shot, and follow a diet. So the diet has to be kind of clean eating, but it's up to you to set that diet.
And how'd you go about that diet? What sort of, were you super strict? Were you paleo? Were you vegan? Were you sort of flexible with your diet and stuff like that? So what was your sort of vibe with that?
To be honest, I just followed my regular diet because I've been clean eating now for probably 5 or 6 years since I've educated on myself on how that affects the body. And I've actually gotten granular and noticed how it's affected me internally as well. So I just followed my regular diet and then cut out basically the occasional KFC chips.
Yeah, 100%. They're the best too.
100, man.
100%.
So like I was saying to you before we started recording, there wasn't a great deal that changed in my life. One thing that did change for me, and this is probably the biggest jump, was like I was pretty consistently working out once a day, but then I basically had to double that to 2 workouts a day. And that was the biggest shift. For me, like I'm a huge reader, so the reading thing was just second nature. The diet thing was second nature already. So it was really that workout, but taking myself from like that 85% consistently mark up to 100. Because another thing as well is if you miss out any of those things, if you drink 3.5 liters instead of 4 liters, if you read 9 pages instead of 10, if you work out for 44 minutes instead of 45, you're done. You start again. And like there's lots of people, like obviously you can be as strict or as loose on yourself as you want, but at the end of the day, it's like you will know if you finished it or whether you didn't.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when I first started this challenge, because although I'm quite a disciplined person, to my own standards, I have been known to kind of fall short of things in the past. So when I started this challenge, me and my roommate, we woke up one morning, like it was a couple of days after New Year's, and we're like, fuck, should we do 75 hard? And I was like, I don't know if I want to commit to that, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, fuck, I really want to do it. I was like, I just like pause for 3 seconds, like, all right, let's do it. And then I had like a bit of an internal dialogue of like, fuck, what have I just done? All right, how can I make this easy on myself? So what I did, and I'm really good with accountability, like, especially because I have a great relationship with my ego. Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
But I love that because it's huge in a positive way, right?
100%.
So and I talked to myself, I was like, okay, how can I utilize this? All right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to piece together a bunch of other people like me that want to do this challenge. So I started a WhatsApp group. We all did it together. I think there's about 48 people in the group now. A couple of people from New Zealand, got a couple of people from Italy. Just built that up through my social media and through like the podcast and face to face, and it's been really good. Like we check in with each other all the time when we're encountering like problems, when people had like, you know, things that they were facing. But what really got me excited about that group is when people failed. Yeah. They then voiced that in the group, and then because they had that accountability in the group, then they restarted. Yeah. Whereas you can imagine if you would fail on your
easy,
own,
right? Especially on your own, you can easily just swipe there. And I'm like, no, I didn't even start there.
Never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened.
Sure.
So it was great to see that. But I went in with the mindset of I'm finishing this. So I never had the like emotional burden of fighting myself on it. It was just a matter of how do I make this work.
Okay.
You know, and that I feel like that has been one of the most important things for me. And I've done lots of self-reflection because I finished it, 3 days ago?
Yeah.
I've done lots of self-reflection. And I feel like that for me, along with the WhatsApp group and the accountability, was the biggest reason why I was able to flow through it, because it was never how am I going to do this? It was it was never a fact of like, you know, me having to fight myself to do it. It was just how do I get it done? How do I fit it into my schedule? That kind of stuff.
So now that you obviously spoke about reflecting and stuff like that, what were the biggest lessons, the learnings, and what was it like to be so detailed and, like you said, accountable to such a high level? Because that's where most people want to get to, right? They want to get to a point where they just optimize everything and they just operate at a high level throughout the whole year. So what were the biggest lessons, and what do you think, was there anything that changed with you? Is there anything that you're going to keep from the 75 Hard Challenge?
I'm keeping all of it.
All of it?
Yeah. I'm keeping all of it. The only thing that's going to change for me is I want to have the flexibility to... Oh, another thing I didn't mention, no alcohol during 75 Hard. I didn't mention that before. So the only thing that's going to change for me moving forward is, you know, if I'm out in an event, like, and it's like a special occasion or go to a nice restaurant, I'll have a glass of wine. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big drinker anyway. Yeah. Never really have been, but I still want that kind of, that flexibility. And I'm kind of, me and my housemate Adam, we're adding a few things onto the program. So one thing that we're adding on is, moving forward is, like a gratitude and, like a gratitude action. So every single day, we have to do something for somebody else. So whether that's just, you know, say for instance on our morning run, we take a bag, we clean up the path and stuff like that. Okay. Maybe we buy a coffee for the person behind me. Maybe if there's someone, like I've been making a conscious effort to do this over the last 6 months, is like if I see a girl I really like her tattoos, or I see a guy that, you know, I really like his outfit, or whether I'm at the gym or whatever. That's crazy. I just, before I like think about it consciously, you just love your style, bro. Yeah. Hey, like your tattoos are sick, all that kind of stuff. Because 100%. Me personally, that like gets me super fired up and super bubbly, and it's also just adding a little layer to your confidence armor as well. Yeah,
for sure. And that's what I was. Now that you've gone through that and talk about that, what is your morning routine? Because I'm super big on morning routine. I feel like you have to be in a position where your body and mind is so primed to go out and complete the tasks that you have every day, and you can't wake up in the mindset of we're just scrolling through social media and stuff like that. So for me, it's super important. For you, how important is morning routine, and what does that sort of look like for you?
Well, you win the morning, you win the day. Like everyone hears that all the time. But before we jump onto that, I'll wrap up the second half of your previous question, because it ties well into that one. So one of the main takeaways that I got from this situation is you're never too busy. You know, you're never too busy. Like, if you really think about it, like, when's the last time that you went on your phone and checked your screen time? You know?
That's an eye-opener, right? Yeah. The screen time thing.
Makes me sick. It makes me sick.
It's actually, sometimes it's just, I'm just like, what am I doing?
100. So, before, and that was a major thing I was coming up against. I was like, I'm already so busy. How the fuck do I fit all this stuff in? Like, running the podcast, running the business, trying to uphold a personal brand and a social life as well, then I was like, fuck, I don't have time to do this. I do not have time to do this. But then the thing is, because I'd made that decision that I'm finishing this, I was like, okay, shut the fuck up, internal voice. How are you going to do this? And then it just meant that I had to consistently get up at 5. And I just straight away, if you get your first workout in, like if you try and smash out, like, and don't get me wrong, there has been times where I was getting a run in at 10:30 at night or something like that, just because I had like events on during the day or some shit. But the one thing that I've found is you always have time. You always have time. And it made me super efficient. When I did sit down and do work at my desk and like work on the business, I wasn't the usual like fucking take, 3 hours to do a 30-minute task because I had the luxury of time. It made me get really, really purposeful about how I'm actually spending my time, how I'm spending my day. And then because of that, and like, the saying diamonds are formed under pressure, that was literally exactly what happened to me. It was like, because of the added pressure, I was getting the same amount of work done compressed into a fraction of the time. And it was far more efficient work because the conscious mind wasn't getting in the way of things. It was just, all right, I got to get this done. Let's just flow. I have all the answers. I know how to do this. Everything I've done a million times. So just sit down and get it done. And that gave me confidence as well, because I could look back and say, hang on, my workload has not actually, it's not suffered. I've been able to get more done, as well as like layering on all the fitness stuff and like the mental space taken up by diet and discipline for the challenge as well. So in all honesty, man, I couldn't put a single thing, I couldn't put like a detailed list to what it changed in my life, but it just made me realize that I'm in control and I can make whatever I want happen if I want it to happen. That ties me into the next question, morning routine. Get up early, get your first workout in, drink water early. Because if you're trying to leave... What time
do you get up?
5.
5.
So, and that's taken me like a good couple of years to get to this point. And like I'd say I've probably been consistently over the last like, a couple of years been inching my way back, inching my way back, especially because I'm a creative. Like there were years, I spent years and years and years of just working till like sunrise basically. And that was just because it's the creative hours, and then I'd sleep till 10. So it took me a long time to reverse that cycle to, all right, now I've got to be kind of getting in bed at 8:30. And this is kind of ironic because I was up till 3:30 this morning designing jewelry. But that's an anomaly for me now. I'm not that kind of person.
So is
anymore.
that a scientific thing, like creative hours are at night? Or is that just something that you naturally progressed into doing these late nights and stuff like that, but since you've started to wake up early around 5, has your creative time changed at all?
For me personally, I find it when the sun is down, I slip into a deep focus. When the sun is up, I want to be outside doing shit. I don't want to be sitting down at my desk working. So that's, I don't know if there's, I'm sure there's something to do with hormone levels that make it easier to concentrate or something, but for me personally, that's what it was. And I used to procrastinate at my desk because I really didn't want to be sitting down there doing it. And that stems back to me not understanding the purpose and not being clear on the purpose of why I was doing it. Because everything comes back to the purpose. You can do anything with a strong enough why. So that full 180 in terms of like routine has been great. I've been doing this for years now, but I intermittent fast till about 12:30.
What got you onto that? Was it just something naturally that came to you, or was it something that science-based again, like there's a lot of hype around that in terms of what it's able to do in terms of your health and stuff like that? Was it because of that, or was it just something that you naturally fell into?
So I would say I was doing it before understanding why, but in an unhealthy way, because I used to roll out of bed and get straight into work, and then I'd forget to eat, and most times till dinner. Like I was in a real unhealthy. And I'm probably going back.
You went
12
all
months.
day without eating until dinner sometimes.
Like obsession does crazy things to you. Hey, don't get me wrong. It got lots of stuff done. But looking back on it, it's like sacrificing yourself is never the best answer. In any situation, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're building a business, anything. Because at the end of the day, like you have this body and this body alone. Like anything you build in the external, any business, any relationship, any like anything outside of the body is irrelevant, because if your internal starts to fuck up and you die, what is it all for?
Yeah, 100%.
So I was doing that in an unhealthy way, and then I read a book called Headstrong by Dave Asprey.
Yeah.
And he talks, have you heard of biohacking?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's basically just a book all about biohacking. And he does these things, well, he has a company called Bulletproof. And he has kind of like really pushed, have you ever heard of like a Bulletproof coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember trying to get back on that on the day. It just wasn't for me, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically I fast with Bulletproof Coffee. So it's not like a clean fast, but what you're doing, you're fasting with oil. Similar to what like paleo does, but without all like the negative stuff attached to the paleo diet. Yeah. But basically what that allows you to do is you're burning your fat oils, which doesn't like kickstart your stomach digestion essentially, so that you're in a kind of semi-ketosis. Yep. And when you're in ketosis, you're burning so we have two different fuel sources in our body. Ketones come from within our body. They're like a molecule that our body generates. And then we have like carbohydrates, which is obviously stuff that we consume. So ketones are like 3 to 4 times more efficient than carbohydrates in terms of building energy. But another thing that happens as well, and because I'm all about optimizing the brain. That's the 100%. Most important thing for me. Really, me working on my body is a thing of the last 12 months. Yeah. So I've always been about the brain. So basically, when you're burning carbohydrates, you're sucking energy away from the brain, right? Yeah. And I found it really hard after eating like a big breakfast to sit down and do analytical work or creative work, because it would just be like this fog kind of thing. Like, I can get up and do physical work, not a problem, but work that involves the brain heavily, I was just hitting barriers all the time. So when I started having these Bulletproof coffees, I was just like so clear, and I could just channel my information. Like, because the thing about the human brain as well, it forgets absolutely nothing. Every piece of stimulus you have ever come in contact with in your life is stored in your brain. Yeah. The problem that we face is where our recollection of that information. Yeah. So getting super clear getting super clear pathways in the brain allows you to recall information. I'll give you guys a little bit of information as well just on like healthy fats, because I know there's lots of people that might be, having like margarines or something like that there's seed oils like canola oils and things like that, or even just fried foods. I'll use fried foods. It's a great example. So basically the way that our brain communicates throughout our body are these highways called basically neural pathways. And these neural pathways they're basically just energy pathways, and they use fat as their conductors to pass information. So have you ever cooked a steak on a barbecue and you see like the fat on the side go white and hard? Yeah. So when we have deep fried foods, when we have canola oils, when we have margarines, all these kinds of stuff,
broken down into
that's what that fat does to our neurons, and it can grow the length of our neurons by 1/3. So quite literally, it takes longer for information to get to our brain to its source. And it's not as conductive as well. So if you were to swap to something as simple as swapping to coconut oil and not eating fried foods, you'll notice your brain activity will skyrocket.
100%. Well, just clean up your diet in general will definitely help with that. And that's the thing, you don't know until you start to implement these things into your diet or to your daily routines that it actually get you the benefits that you actually need. Because like you said, like everything comes from the mind. And that's very interesting. Like for me, I feel like if I optimize my body, my brain will optimize as well. But that gives me a little thought about that as well, is that everything does come from the brain. And I think there's definitely a synchronization when the body's in really good shape and the mind is in good shape, that they sort of bounce off each other as well. But you brought up a really good point. It was just like self-sacrifice. Like so many people, I feel, get caught in the trap of self-sacrificing for something external, like you said, rather than, self-sacrificing in a way that you take care of yourself first. So give us sort of idea for like what that looked like for you in terms of self-sacrificing things for the external, and what sort of got you to a point to realize, I really need to start taking care of myself so that the rest outside me can be optimized. So when did that change? Were certain events in your life happen, or was it just a build-up of accumulation of things like, I'm really starting to sacrifice myself, my body, my mind for external things?
Yeah, so I think from this, I'll give people just a very quick outline of basically kind of what I've done coming out of school and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not that relevant, but it's good to get a little bit of background.
Yeah.
So I started my first business in grade 9. It was a marketing agency. I was doing lots of paid marketing and graphic design for like lots of clubs here on the Gold Coast, local businesses, all that kind of stuff. Started that really early. And that all stemmed from me in grade 7. I didn't form a company or anything for this, but I saw a need around my neighborhood for this like poisonous weed that was popping up everywhere. Yeah. So I was like, all right, I made up a little flyer. I just learned how to use Photoshop back in grade 7. Yeah. I made up a little flyer. And I was like, do you know what this weed is? Do you know why it's poisonous? It hurts, like your horses hurt your cows, blah, blah, blah. I'll pick it up for this much a bag. And then I got so many calls back. So what I ended up doing on weekends is like, getting my mum to load up the car with like 7 boys from school. We'd all come out. We'd pick up like, it's called fireweed, right? We'd pick up fireweed like 8 or 9 hour day, just playing music, having a fucking laugh. Yeah. Made an absolute killing. And then my favorite thing about that was, it was cool that I made lots of money and it was like a business thing. Yeah. But the most like exciting thing about that whole arrangement was at the end of the day going, here you go. Like, here's some money, here's some money, here's some money. And then the fact that I was able to like give my mates like money, and I was paying them $20 an hour for like a grade 7.
That's balling.
Yeah, that's wicked, And so I was like, here's some money, and that just like lit me up. So like that's what kind of started this narrative in my head. It's like you're a born entrepreneur, and I've just carried that throughout my life. Yeah, and I'm super like I really believe that the stories you tell yourself become your reality. Yeah, I could. Without that, like, if I wasn't telling myself I was a born entrepreneur my entire life, I probably would have gotten a job by now. Yeah, tell you the truth. Yeah. But there's this thing inside me that just goes, no, you're a born entrepreneur. You figure stuff out. You make stuff happen. You make stuff work. So that's kind of been my programming. And then I did various businesses through grade 11 and 12. Started the clothing line toward the end of grade 11. Basically just printing on AS Color tees. Yeah. And then as soon as I left high school, made some money in cryptocurrency. Absolute fluke. So I put that money into manufacturing.
What year was that?
It was 2016, late 2016.
That's great.
So I got in I wouldn't say that it definitely wasn't the first boom, but it was the boom that people started to pay attention. That's where we went from, like, when I first bought Bitcoin, it was like $600 or something like that. Yeah. Rode that wave up to 26,000 Australian. Then put heaps of money into the altcoins, but that's a whole nother podcast entirely. But so I made quite a bit of money in a really short amount of time that I didn't earn. Yeah. It was just pure fluke. And then because I was stupidly young, it wasn't money that I had to work hard for. Yeah. I spent way too much money on the clothing order. And still to this day, there are boxes of that shit I'm trying to sell. Just because it wasn't my money. You know what I mean? So I just wasn't that thoughtful about what I was ordering. I didn't have product market fit, which is super important if you're wanting to start a business. Yeah. And all that kind of stuff. So that taught me a huge lesson in the beginning, basically. So then from there, it's kind of taken me through to where we are now. What was your original question again?
What were the sort of the things, because you talk about self-sacrifice, you're doing all these things, trying to create these things for the outside that you're sort of neglecting your inside from your mind and your body.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. So that takes me to where we are now. So basically what I was doing is as soon as I left school, I placed that massive order. I went just hard out into business straight away. And what I was doing is like I didn't keep in contact with any friends. Like I'm 12 months out of a 7-year relationship now. So I had my girlfriend and that was it, and we had each other and that was it. So it was like, although it was beautiful, like we were best mates since grade 8. So we had a great bond, but you never just want each other. You need a circle, you need people outside. Like we're best friends. We're also like, the lovers and partners, business partners.
Everything. And it just,
So what I found is my entire personality, because I was just working stupid hours, get up early in the morning, roll out of bed, straight on the computer, sit till fucking dark, maybe eat dinner, and probably only dinner.
Maybe.
No gym, no physical exercise. Or like if I had a really stressful day, maybe I'll go and smash myself on like a I don't know, 5 kilometer
just to
run.
let some energy out.
To get that static energy out. But it was super unhealthy. Like my sex drive went through the floor. My relationship was like very, very on thin ice for a long time, purely because we didn't have that connection. We lost that polarity in lots of ways. So just not taking care of my physical health, my mental health. And what I found is I was not happy. Like I consider myself to be extremely positive person.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, negativity falls off me like water off a duck's back. But the thing is, there came to a point there where I was like, okay, I was mediocrely happy, never upset, never ecstatic. I was just a monotone human being. So it got to this point where I was saying to Bella, I was like, fuck, something's got to change. Like, you know, what can we do? So then we were just like, oh, do we want to move somewhere else? So then we're like, fuck, where should we move? Okay, well, never been to Sydney before. Should we move to Sydney? She's like, okay, I'll give my 3 weeks notice. And then like, this is all over a joint one night. We had this conversation. And then 3 weeks later, we packed all our shit up, went down to Sydney, couch hopped for 2 weeks. Because down in Sydney, you've got to be physically at the house inspections. You can't just do it over the phone, whatever. So we had to go down there and couch hop while we found a place. And that was when, up to this point as well, I'd never read a book before. Never read a book. So I was self-development, but without any of the actual information. It was just pure motivation and like rah-rah. So it got to the point there where I was like, okay, you know, if I'm moving down here, I'm moving down with a purpose, and my purpose is to build the person that I want to be. You know, because like when you're around family, when you're around friends that have known you forever, they kind of hold you in that position, what they know you as. And maybe they don't do that, but your projection is thinking that they're doing that. So I just said to myself, all right, who do I want to be? What are the steps in order for me to be that person? All right, this person reads, this person works out, this person has sex with their girlfriend. Frequently, this person takes their girlfriend on dates. This person has lots of friends. This person, you know, is very comfortable making sales calls. This person goes and takes what they want in life, but also is very loving and very generous. You know, and I just kind of built out literally pages and pages of who this person was, and then went down there and just became it. You know, and it sounds stupid, but everything is one decision away. Everything that we want is always one decision away. And I see you've got there in front of me here, the only person stopping you is yourself. Like, that hits hard, man.
100%.
You know?
And that's the thing, like, every morning and stuff, and it's like your environment is so crucial. And when all this started to come together, it's like you have to change your environment and what you see, because what you see is what you think is what you believe in, what you believe in is how you act. So those are little things that you have to create the environment that is of someone that is like of a high level, because if you want to become someone that does great things, you really have to optimize your environment, everything that's around you, what you read and stuff like that. So talking about that self-development, like, what was the beginning of that self-development? What were some of the first few books that you read to that really set your heart on fire, your mind, your body, just everything that started to, for you, it's just like, this is where the knowledge is, this is where the gold is, this is where the treasure is. Like, I have to be focused on building the knowledge and the information to go out there and execute. So what were some of the first like signs of self-development that you're like, fuck, I'm on the right track here?
When I made the decision to read, that was when it was a major shift for me, because I did not enjoy reading. I feel like lots of people will resonate with that. I was the kind of person that would have to read a page twice, you know, because I'm like, I can't sit still enough to read. And like, I've had this conversation with heaps of people, and I get you, I understand that. But at the same time, that having that conversation and reinforcing the fact that you can't read or that reading is difficult is just keeping you from reading. So I just had to make the decision, all right, it doesn't matter how long it takes me to read this fucking book, I'm reading the book. And that first book was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I cannot remember what it was about.
It's the funniest, that's the first self-development book that I ever read as well. I don't even know how it come, because I think it's the name of the book, like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, because at that point in your life, sometimes you can feel like you're super insecure, and it's like, how do I stop thinking about being judged about the shit that I do? So at that age, I think it sort of makes sense. So before we do get on to that, we'll just reset the cameras and we'll get back to it.
100.
Welcome back, guys. we're just obviously talking about the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. So what did that book what do you learn from that book? What was the sort of takeaways from that book? And from there, like, where did your self-development go to?
So, and honestly, the main takeaway from that was the fact I could finish a book.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't tell you what it was about. Obviously, the title probably gives you a rough idea of what the idea of the book is. But, yeah, I don't think it was... I've got this funny thing. It's like every book that I finish, for the most part, I've read hundreds of books now, but especially probably the first 20, every book that I finished was the best book I've ever read, you know? Because it was just like, fuck, I finished another one. And like everything you're learning, especially in the beginning of your self-development journey, is just so eye-opening to you. It's just like it explodes your mind.
It's so eye-opening, man. That's crazy.
But one book that I will contribute that was very early on in the piece, probably like 3rd or 4th book that I read, and I was on a book a month. That was what I kind of set myself, book a month. And then once I got better at reading, I was smashing that. I was doing, you know, a book and a half a month, easy. But the first few months, because I was a very slow reader and stuff like that, I was struggling, and I had to really set time aside. But because I set that challenge, and that's another thing as well that I've learned through 75 Hard, to circle back, is the challenge keeps you accountable. Like setting a clear challenge, having that thing you got to tick off every single day. Like even if it's like 5 minutes, just to say, all right, I'm going to do 5 minutes of XYZ today. Like I did that when I had to learn how to get good at meditating. Yeah, I'm going to do 5 minutes of meditation. I didn't set 45 minutes, or I didn't set an hour, because that, to me, that would have been like, I don't have time to do an hour of meditation right now. I'm not going to do any.
So you wanted to set something achievable?
Yeah. So a book a month was a huge step, but at the same time, I just moved fucking cities. Yeah. So, you know, am I going to do it and fuck around, or am I going to do this properly?
Sure.
And I knew that reading was a cheat code. I'd heard about it in podcasts. Everyone's like, you know, it's a cheat code. Like, you're living through someone's life. They've spent years and years condensing this piece of 100%. Information down to like 200 pages.
200 pages, yeah, for sure.
You know?
And do you know Naval Ravikant?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like
His
one of the best
Mind
things...
Valley, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And he said... the treasure and the knowledge is in the books, but no one wants to sit down and do the time to read it, and that's why there's so many people that don't get to where they don't get to, because they just don't spend the time finding the knowledge. So it's super important. And now that you've read so many of these books, it's just like, what sort of interests you the most in terms of like books and stuff? Is it anything, or is it just building knowledge?
I've got a great answer for that as well, but I want to touch on something first. So you mentioned before that, like, early on in my journey, some stuff that like really took hold. A book that is super important that I recommend to every living being, and you've probably heard me mention it in a bunch of different podcasts. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
I just reread that. I re-listened to it.
Yeah, I read it every year without fail. It's the one that's in the top of my desk.
Why do you think that's the most important one? Is it because we spend so much time around people?
Oh, man, like, relationships are everything. And, like, because the thing about it as well is whenever you hear the word relationship, you think, you know, like, people around you. But you think about it, you have the deepest relationship with yourself. There are multiple people living within your head. You know, there's, like, the conscious, and then there's the physical, you know what I mean? So when it comes to understanding relationships and understanding how to communicate, whether it's with other people or with yourself, like, that is an intangible skill. You know, and it constantly grows with you. So the earlier you learn it, and this ties on to perfectly into what I want to say next, the earlier you learn it, the faster it can snowball and improve. Because as soon as your communication styles can become unconsciously competent, then that's when you are superhuman and you get whatever you want out of life. Regardless of whether you don't have the skills to back it up or anything like that, when you become unconsciously competent in how to communicate and how to form and maintain relationships with other people and yourself, you get everything you want out of life. So there are 3 levels of understanding. And this is something that I had to kind of learn the hard way when I was on my self-development journey, because I got addicted to consuming knowledge, right? Yeah. So there's the learning, stage 1 of understanding. So learning, reading it, you know, you've got the information, you know it, right? So that's the stage 1, knowing. Number 2 is knowing it to an ability you could teach someone. So a lot of what I'm talking about right now, I'm at the knowing, you know, because I can communicate it, I can articulate it to you guys really clear. And then stage 3 is like action, all right? So whenever someone like, you know, you hear it a lot, like with people that are into self-development and all that kind of stuff, people that read a lot of books, you talk to them about a subject, like, oh, I know about that. And it's like, okay, well, do you do it?
Yeah.
And that's like where I was falling short for ages. I was just like, consume. I was like a podcast junkie, a book junkie. I was just consuming knowledge like a fucking vacuum. And then I wasn't implementing. I was like, oh, fuck, I don't want to make this sale call right now. I'm going to read a book instead because it still makes me feel like I'm being productive.
Yeah.
You know?
So it sort of become a paralysis by analysis. You're doing all the analyzing, but the implementation, the action, which is actually the work that gets you over the line, just wasn't happening.
Exactly. Like, do you do it, and does your bank account show it?
Yeah.
You know, that's the measurement there. It's like, if I'm learning about sales, am I doing what I'm learning, or am I just learning about it? I'm not planning. Am I doing it? Because planning isn't doing. It's just another form of learning.
Yeah.
You know, you're just re-rationalizing the stuff you're learning about. So, yeah, that's the 3 stages there. So you've got the learning phase, you got the understanding in order to teach, and then you've got the action phase. And then very few people get to the action phase. That's why we have people in universities teaching business classes that have never once done a business. They understand it to teach it, but they don't action it. Because if they action it, all due respect to anyone who's a teacher listening to this, if they were actioning it and they built a successful business, they probably wouldn't be a teacher.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's the way society works, right?
Sure.
It's not anyone's fault, bar the structure of society. So, yeah, that's the 3 things. And, like, the reason why I started a lot of How to Win Friends and Influence People is so influential. I feel like for me as well, it was in a period of time where I was well out of my comfort zone. Like, before moving to Sydney, I had convinced myself I was an introvert.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, where the fuck did that come from? So that really allowed me to break free of that, because it's like, okay, well, I don't have to be the loudest person in the room and still make such a memorable impact.
Yeah.
You know, there was periods of time, especially the first year I lived down there, I used to take myself on walks by myself on nights out to psych myself up.
Yeah.
You know, because I just used
to go in.
Yeah, literally. I used to get like
so. Were you a shy kid?
No, not at all, man.
Oh, really?
Not at all. It was that isolation. I forgot how to interact with people. It was that isolation, and then also that isolation as well as the pressure of myself. Like, you know, there's pros and cons to everything I'm talking about right now. I'm focusing very heavily on the pros, but that me having that story saying, oh, I'm a born entrepreneur, also came with a whole lot of pressure. You need to be hyper successful early. And that's just always been through my head. Like, one thing that I've overcome in the last probably couple of months is there's this been unconscious thing in my subconscious. Is like, I've been hesitating on making really valuable business decisions over the last couple of months. And I've been procrastinating on it, and I've just been doing mediocre work because I've been, it took me this weekend to like really knuckle down and figure out what this was. But I had this thing in my subconscious, like, I don't have time to fail. Yeah. Because I need to be successful now. So I wasn't taking the risks. So I wasn't
allowing to make an actual decision because,
I don't have time to fail. It has to be perfect. And because I was aiming for that perfection, I got nothing, you know? Yeah. I did nothing. And I feel like that's something a lot of people can relate to. Because at the end of the day as well, perfection is just a coping mechanism.
Yeah,
because
100%.
it's unattainable.
It's something to hide behind. Like, well, if it's not perfect, I'm not going to do it. But if you're not going to do it, then how do you expect to get better at something? Like, 100%. And that's so funny. When I was young, I was like, it has to be perfect. So that became my hindrance, because if it's not perfect, I'm not going to do it. But then at the same time, it just plays out as an insecurity. It's like nothing's going to be perfect. Then once you understand that the action is where you get the progress to go to where you need to be, that's sort of a perfection in itself, is the progress, right?
100.
So
because as soon as you reach perfection, you're dead.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's just like, that's so funny. And when people get to the highest level and then they feel lost and depressed and stuff because they've gone to the highest level, that what's next, you know? So you're speaking about that and the business decisions, stuff like that, which is moves perfectly into the next question is, you know, give us a bit of insight to Anarchy, how it started, what it is, and sort of the plans and stuff, where you want to take it.
Yeah, so you're catching this at a very interesting time, because I haven't actually.
The juice. This is the juice.
This is the inside scoop. I haven't announced this to my audience, the Before the Money audience, the Anarchy audience, anything. So basically, what's happened over the last 3 months. I've been working on a total rebrand for Anarchy. So basically, I gave you a little bit of vamp of what Anarchy was. You know, started it in high school. It was originally a marketing company, turned into clothing, all that kind of stuff. Essentially, the name Anarchy, for anyone who hasn't heard the word before, which blows my mind that some people haven't still, but, you know, basically it's just society operating without governance. So, you know, you living based on your own terms. And one thing that I really want to like push across here is especially because we've heard anarchy in the media and stuff with such a negative connotation. Anarchy, in my perspective, and this is the way that I like to put it out, because the media is great at putting a negative spin on things. So they think anything that's operating without governance, obviously it has to be chaos, right? Because, we couldn't wipe our own ass without the government showing us how to do it. So basically the media has put a negative spin on it. But in the way that I view it, anarchy is such a beautiful thing. Because imagine if society could operate without governance. Imagine what we would need. We would need to all respect each other. We need to learn to collaborate. We need to love each other. And we'd all need to understand mutual value and mutual understanding, right? So to me, anarchy is such a beautiful thing. And that's what I've built the brand ethos basically around. And my whole thing since the beginning is because I got so pissed off because I was printing on like AS Color t-shirts. I got so pissed off that they were charging me what they were charging me, and then 3 washes down the track, like it looks like a fucking rag. That irked me so much. I'm like, how hard could it be to make a good t-shirt? So then that's when I started the process of manufacturing, and I've had although maybe 50% of the audience hold this as a high value when they're buying clothing, me personally is like, if I'm putting stuff out there, I want it to make you feel good. I want you to wear it, and I want you to be able to wear it. So the quality,
people were not too fussed about it?
They were. The thing is, when they're talking about, the people notice it, but it's not something that most people buy for. If you think about it, right? Especially
it's for more the brand?
It's for my own morals in lots of ways.
100%.
I want, the thing is as well, my wardrobe is so fucking full of anarchy clothes because, you know, I'll grab an anarchy piece and then I'll still be wearing it 4 or 5 years down the track. And I'm like, fuck, I can't throw this out because it still looks good. You know, I've just got so many pieces in there. So that's kind of what I wanted. And I also wanted to be able to provide that at a price that, you know, everyone could attain. Everyone could reach, right? So that was my initial thought process. And I didn't understand anything about fashion back then. I was looking at the European market and seeing what they were doing, and they were at that stage, bright colors were in and all that kind of stuff. So when I launched my first manufactured collection, I didn't understand how to, the understanding of hype. I knew how to run Facebook ads and shoot photography, do all that kind of stuff, graphic design, but I didn't understand the fashion industry and how reliant it is on image. So at the end of the day, people will buy a fucking handkerchief if Kanye West sells it.
If it's Gucci, I want that. And it better be expensive.
You know, if ASAP Rocky's wearing a pair of fucking shit-stained underwear, 100%. Everyone will buy them. And that's because it's that perceived value. It's that idea of I admire them. And therefore, because fashion is such a representation, it's such an external factor in how we put ourselves how we put ourselves out in the world, how we relay our energy and communicate our energy to the world. So I didn't understand that necessarily in the beginning, not consciously anyway. So it took me ages to start getting sales on that first bit. But coming back to the fact I'm a born entrepreneur, I figure it out. You know? And that's something that's been super important. I figured it out. It took me years to really start to turn over. And I was pushing the same stock. But the good thing about that is because all my pieces were designed from scratch. I didn't say, I want to print on a t-shirt, send it over there and say, make it like this for me. I learnt how to do fabric making and all that kind of stuff. I made my own cuts. The hoodies, to this day, I have not encountered a hoodie that is like the original panel hoodie. We've changed them since then. But to this day, I've not encountered a hoodie that's like that. And that's why I was able to push it for so many years, because it was still unique and it was timeless. So basically that's one thing I've learned as well. When you do things that are unique, yes, it takes longer for people to understand it.
But when they do,
you're in this thing called the blue ocean. So if anyone's read the blue ocean strategy, basically what it is, it's just the concept of, instead of operating in a red ocean, like in terms of a business, like if you wanting to make a clothing brand just like everyone else is making a clothing brand, the only thing you have to compete on is price. Whereas if you make a clothing brand and you do it completely differently, you might ostracize some people that have specific tastes and like they might want it in a certain way, but you're going to really, really connect to the smaller amount of people that really love the way that you're doing it differently. And you don't have any competition in a blue ocean, you know? So great book as well. So pretty much, I'll cut a long story short. Where we're at now is I fell out of love with the aesthetics of the brand.
Okay.
Because it was
it just the evolution of who you are as a person?
Yes, 100%. 100%. And like the brand image currently is like streetwear, like baller, LA style, all that kind of stuff. And it's good. It's selling. But it's every time I sell something, like low key I'm being raw here. Low key it like fucking chips away at my soul a little bit. Yeah. You know, because that's the thing. Like, this is me being hypercritical on myself again. Like, I'm so proud of all those pieces because the quality is next to none. Like, I can almost like, I reckon I could count on my both hands the amount of returns we've had. Just that's because
good. That's like, when you know, like, it's working, man. As the pieces are crafted the way they should be. Yeah, that's pretty good.
You know, and that's a big achievement. And but the thing is, it doesn't align with my aesthetic and my mood at the moment. Okay. So, and it has been probably 6 years probably 5 years since I've done a rebrand, changed up the vibe. Yeah. So I've basically just let the brand run on autopilot while I'm completely stripping the brand. And what I've done this time is I made a point of, because when I've done like built the brands and collections in the past, I've kind of built them under the lens of what would my audience want? Yeah. What does the market want right now? Whereas this time around, I'm removing that thought entirely and I'm building it from a brand new brand. I'm only keeping the name. What do I want to build? And I'm not sugarcoating it. Like the last couple of collections, I've had these grand ideas and I've like watered them down to something the market might want. Yeah. So this time around, we're completely stripping it back. I'm launching it with a jewelry collection, and then we're going to bring clothing back into it later in the piece. But we're relaunching as a jewelry brand. And that's like what's got me super motivated at the moment, because I've had to learn an entirely new skill. I had no idea how to do jewelry design. I had no idea about jewelry production, lead time. I had to find a completely new factory. I had to understand material. I had to understand material market value. I had to understand marketing for like jewelry collections, product photography, just completely restart not entirely restart, but rebuild my toolkit basically from the ground up, which has been exciting. I feel like that's what I've needed. So yeah, that's what's been like keeping me super fucking ignited over the last
running the mind for a while. So with the jewelry, the rebranding and the clothing, that when it does come back and it's going to be with the same vibe as the jewelry, or is the jewelry something like a basis of what the Anarchy is going to be eventually? Yeah,
so what you guys see now, and if you go to Anarchy Label on Instagram or anarchylabel.com, what you see there is not even close to the representation of what Anarchy is behind the scenes right now.
That's cool, man. That's exciting.
So, and I'm dropping it all in one piece. I've teamed up with like a bunch of influencers and like influencers that I feel like embody the values of Anarchy, and like really get behind the mission and things like that as well. And we're basically dropping it with this collection. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a behind the scenes scoop. We're going deep into the music scene. Like the music is on my muse now. I've been playing drums for almost since I could walk. Like music is such a passion of mine. It's one of the things that really lights me up. I know lots of musicians. I just love that raw creation, that raw expression. Yeah. So I want to. Well, I am channeling that into a product. One thing as well is because Anarchy, another branch of the business, is we make merch for bands and artists. Yeah. So, but I don't market that on the brand at all. Yeah. It's just like a B2B service kind of thing that I do. So what I'm starting to do is actually build out a section of the brand where these bands can sell their merch on Anarchy. That really ties into that whole music. And I feel I'm saying music at the moment, but it's really going to extend out to creators. Like videographers, graphic designers, painters, tattoo artists, all that kind of stuff. Like, I just want to work with creators. And like you'll see on our website and on our Instagram, our tag is Born to Create, and that's still the same because that's me.
So have you always been creative, and how has your creative process in terms of what inspires you? Like you said, music's your muse at the moment. Has it always been muse, or has it just been moments and the evolution through your life to where you are now that's your muse and your creativity came from different inspirations at time in your life?
Yeah, my muse is contextual. The music has been like such an outlet for me, and it's been such like a condenser of energy, but I've shunned it away for a long time. And like, I feel like this is just the journey of growing up and finding your own. But for so long, I was trying to be someone that I intrinsically wasn't. I'm not trying to be like fake or anything like that. I was just like, I really want to be like that streetwear sneaker dude. I really want to be that guy. Yeah. Like, that's so cool. Like, from the outside looking in, that's so cool. But I was always the outside looking in. And that just shows that was not who I wanted to be, because I'm the kind of person that makes what I want happen. Yeah. And like, it really took me, getting older and looking back at, because like, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. Yeah. You can't connect the dots looking forward. We can choose the destination, but we can never choose the journey. Yeah. So me, like, in my maturity now, and I'm still very young, still only 24, but maturity and contextual to where I've come from, I now see, okay, well, when you are your authentic self, when you're making music, when you're designing the things that truly light you up, it's effortless. Yeah. But whereas when you're trying to be that streetwear guy, you've got to put so much thought and attention into it, and then like, you burn out and lose interest, and you're inconsistent because it's not you. Yeah. You're trying to play a character.
That's a really good point, is that when you truly love something, time flies. And like you said, that's so funny, because I think about, for me, like movement, like training and stuff, it's effortless to me. And sometimes I get it so tangled up, and like when I see people, it's like, it's so hard to work out and like move your body. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is effortless, like lifting heavy and doing these things and training, like pushing yourself to this feels effortless. And it's just like, maybe it's just because I'm passionate about that. I like the move. I like the feeling of being like under pressure, like working hard, that it feels effortless. And that's a really good point. I think about like, how do you make effort effortless? And that's a really good point, is that when it's something that you genuinely know that's authentic, is that it's effortless. So for anyone that is listening, if you're finding things is super hard, when you feel like it's something to passion, maybe it's time to reflect and like continue to look at the things around you, and is it actually something that feels effortless to you? Because if it doesn't, then sometimes that it could be a good sign that maybe this isn't for you, or you need to go about it a different way. So that's a very interesting point. I think it's a very good like word to put for something that is creative as well.
Yeah. So how would you recommend someone going on about like reflecting and finding their passion, so to speak?
Just let go of everything. Like, stop trying to think of like, I've got to be this. Like, spend time alone, like, and generally just spend time with yourself. Go for walks, get coffee, just walk alone and just think. Sometimes, like, when I went through it, for me, I just wouldn't listen to anything. I just walk, and whatever came to my mind, I just let it be. Like, I wouldn't judge anything. I wouldn't like, that's weird, why am I thinking about that? I just let everything come to me, and then over time it sort of made sense. And then everything, like, the best thing you can ever do is just get quiet inside and just be with yourself, and just everything naturally, the source and your source naturally comes to you. And that's how I sort of found this and what the purpose looked like. But it's just like, don't push anything. Just your curiosity will take you to the places you need to go. Yeah. So that for me, it's just being alone, getting away from everything, and just spending time with yourself. It's like talking to yourself. It's just like, hey, we're spending time together. What are you thinking? Like, tell me, what do you feel? Like, what are your emotions? Why do you feel that? So for me, that's what it was like. What was it like for you?
Yeah, man, like, honestly, I've always been my own best friend, and I contribute that to so many of the things that I've been able to do.
Yeah.
And that's purely because, like, and I noticed that within myself as well. Like, when I do spend time that I'm just bombarding my mind with, like, podcasts or books and stuff, or I'm spending too much time around people, and I don't have that time just inside my own mind with no other stimulus, I get this anxiety, like, get within
anxious,
me.
Yeah, like, I need some time away, and you just literally like, okay, I need to get out. Like, you just do anything, like on the weekend or during the week. It's like, I need to get away. That's so weird because you'd be so anxious to feel like you need to connect with someone and be around people all the time. It's like come here, like someone just like connect with me. Now it's just like, man, I need to schedule time to get away from everyone. 100%. That's crazy.
Yeah, spending time within your own mind. And Jordan Peterson's a really big proponent of that as well. He pushes that a lot because it's so important. Like, we don't understand, like, well, I'll backtrack a little bit. Like, society has very clear rules on how one should operate, you know, on how you should go about life, on what is considered successful, you know, what is considered failure.
Yeah.
So it's very, very easy for us to fall on that as our baseline when we don't spend time to understand what those values are for ourselves. You know, it's very, very easy to fall back on societal structures or what our parents say or what our friends do, what our girlfriend, boyfriend wants us to do, what our girlfriend and boyfriend likes, because at the end of the day, right, so let's get a little bit like philosophical, like the human brain, it's this ancient thing. It's millions and millions of years old. It's designed to keep us safe. It's also designed to be as efficient with its energy usage as possible. So when we're making decisions for ourselves and we're like spending time alone, just reflecting, the brain is like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You're using lots of energy right now. Just go over there, hang out with your friends, keep doing what you've always done. We don't have to sit here, you know, we don't have to go into this uncomfortable place. You're comfortable, man. Just keep doing what you're doing.
100%.
So, like, we come up against that barrier, and because that's uncomfortable, we see that as a negative thing. We run away from it. And this is all happening subconsciously. You know, some people it's more conscious than others, but for the most part, this is all happening in our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind operates about, you know, a couple of thousand times faster than our conscious brain. I think it's like 20,000 times faster than our conscious brain. So you put that into perspective, right? And the subconscious is, we're not having like conscious control over that. Like, when we're having thoughts that we're powering with our conscious mind, like, we can do them, we can deal with them because it's like, it's our decision to do that. But like what we were talking about before, when there's this like subconscious anxiety inside us, when we're not giving our brain what it needs, especially when we've trained ourselves to spend time with and like reflect, when we're not giving our brain that time to like decode the problems in our life, that's when your subconscious starts to boil up and is like, hey, you got to go spend some time with yourself. You know, go figure out what it is, where your life isn't in alignment. Maybe, for instance, you've stopped going to the gym as much as you used to. Maybe, for instance, you know, you're starting to slip on your diet a bit. And these all go hand in hand, by the way. As one thing starts to fall, other things fall with it. It's like gravity. You know, it's everything gets sucked into a hole. Wherever there's a void, everything gets sucked down with it. And I just launched a podcast at the beginning of this week with a really inspirational dude called Corey Boutwell. And basically Corey Boutwell, he's like a fitness, I don't know what you call it, WBFF fitness champion. He's got a podcast. He's interviewed some huge names like in sex, sexology, business, psychology, all that kind of stuff. He's really, he's got his own course and stuff. He teaches like hundreds of clients on basically how to just be the most well-rounded alpha male, basically. So that's conscious, that's healthy, that's like, you know, you're an incredible lover, you're very, very empathetic, but you're a fucking beast at the same time, right? So that's his whole life mission. Do we need to reset the cameras again? Yeah.
So take a break. We'll be back in a second. We'll carry on with this. Welcome back. Thanks for staying patient with us. But yeah, carry on what you're talking about.
Yeah, so basically what I was talking about with Corey is like one of the things that he pushes very heavily is no masturbating, no porn. and
no fat.
Yeah, no fat, basically. And I'm starting to see that pop up on social media a lot more and things like that. But prior to me first coming in contact with him like 6 months ago, it's never been on my radar. Like I'm not a big masturbator to begin with. Like I've never really been that into porn. Like I definitely dabble and I have my times of weakness. 100%. But it's never been like an issue of mine.
That's what we talked about is like that time and the weakness. How do you use that weakness as a strength?
Yeah. So one of the things that really caught my attention when he was talking about that is like, you know, when you're like resisting the urge to masturbate, when you're resisting to the urge to watch porn, you're building that resilience to eliminate temptation. Because what you can also do is, say for instance, that temptation pops up after like, you know, you've just finished a long day of work and you're driving past KFC and like that that Zinger box is calling out to you.
100%.
You know? And you're like, fuck, you start salivating. No, I've got food at home. I've got food at home, blah, blah, blah. Or like it's raining outside. Fuck, I don't want to go to the gym. Like, I'm going to get wet on the way to the car. Like, I just want to sit here. Like, I'm so comfy right now. But like, that's like temptation that's just popping up. But because you're building those micro resiliences all around your life, the same way that one like kind of slippage can pull everything down with it, one
can
growth,
affect the other and grow the other,
pulls everything up, you know, because the thing is as well, we get these boost of confidence and we get this dopamine hit when we make good decisions. A lot of people talk about dopamine when we, in a negative way, like when we scroll and, you know, we get this toxic dopamine because we see like a hot girl or someone likes our photo and all that kind of stuff. We also get dopamine for doing great stuff. Yeah. You know, we get dopamine for engaging in a really interesting conversation. Like our brains are going wild with dopamine right now. You know?
And the thoughts that go through your head as well. It's like everything starts to click. So,
because what's interesting as well, like we have these hormones for a reason. You know, they are used in our body for a reason. Like oxytocin, the love hormone, right? That's in our body so that we can form connections. Like when oxytocin is running through our body, I'm a lot more empathetic. It heightens my ability to read micro expressions. So when there's oxytocin in our body and you're with a partner or whether you're just like with a mate that you love and stuff like that, you're more conscious of them, you're understanding them on a deeper level. If we didn't have oxytocin, we would just be all mute to each other. We'd be like talking to brick walls. Same as dopamine, right? Dopamine is spiked by novelty. So for instance, this conversation is novel because we don't know each other really. We're learning lots of new stuff about each other. Lots of stuff that you're saying, I'm like, that's interesting. I like that. Same, and vice versa, right?
Sure.
So dopamine is very, very heavily connected to the amygdala, like part of our brain that's linked to emotion. And it's also linked to learning. So when we're receiving dopamine, when we're learning stuff that ignites us, when it releases that dopamine, we're far more likely to actually obtain and hold on to that information. That's why it's so important. Like, you know, in schools, for instance, when they're teaching you shit you do not give a fuck about, it's not your fault that you don't remember it because literally your body is not wired to absorb the information you don't care about. Your body is wired to take on stuff that you do care about. Like your mental is very valuable real estate. You don't want to be storing shit that, you know, is a waste of space for you.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. With that sort of stuff, like temptations and desires and stuff like that, there's distractions that control our lives. And the best thing I heard about that was a man who has no purpose will seek pleasure. And we're pleasure seekers in the terms of if we don't have that purpose, if we're not doing the things that we want to do to control our lives and create something for us that's fulfilling, that's purposeful, like you said, we're just going to chase these desires. And if anyone is out there and you naturally find yourself giving into temptation, desires, distractions, think about, like, have you got a purpose in your life? Are you striving towards something that is going to be beneficial for yourself, your family, your friends, for the world? It's just something to think about. And obviously speaking about purpose, bro, like, where are you at now? Like, what is the purpose? What is the mission for you, like, right now? And is it going to be the same, or do you think it's going to evolve over time? Is it going to change? But what is the mission? What is the purpose for you?
So my purpose for me is allowing people to live life on their own terms, because that's been something that I'm most grateful for in my life. And it has been out of my own decisions. Everything comes back to our decisions, right? We all have the opportunity to choose how we spend every day, but a lot of people feel like they don't have that choice.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm basically building is, obviously you're familiar with Before the Money, and for anyone that isn't familiar with it, just search Before the Money on iTunes, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, fucking wherever you listen to content, we're there. But the whole point of that is to show people that are just like you and I. See, the whole Before the Money, I get big guests on, but they're not unattainable. They're all people that we could become within the space of 12 months 100%. If we drew a line in the sand and said, I want to be this from now on.
Yeah.
You know, so what the whole point is, like, people that are successful, but they're before the money. They're not unattainable to us, right?
I think that's the coolest name, bro. It's just like, you have to, before the money, like that fit, it's like to be that fit, or before you get the money, you have to be that person. You can't be the person now and think you're going to get the money or going to get the body or the mind that's going to be so clear in the fit body. It's like, you have to be this person before the money. You have to be the person before you're that fit. So I fucking vibe with that name, and stuff like that.
And it's scalable as well, because there is going to be a point where I'm quote unquote at the money.
Yeah.
But it's always subjective, because as like someone who is, you know, growth seeking, there's always that next thing. There's always that next thing. And the money can refer to spirituality. It can, you know, refer to like love and relationship. Yeah. Money can refer to freedom. Like, at the end of the day, money is just a, you know, it's an energy source, and it is like unavoidable in society. But like, a lot of people get it confused that the show is just about success and hustle, and like probably only 30% of my guests are business people. Like, I talked to like one of my recent guest, Natasha Godfrey. She's like an alien that's been reincarnated on Earth.
That's crazy.
And like, that was a fucking wicked episode.
That's
I'm
cool
sure
as fuck, man.
Like, some people listening right now just like tilted their head a bit and like, wait, what?
Go check it out if you haven't.
Yeah, go check it out. Number 37. It'll fucking blow your mind. But anyway, so basically I'm just, with that show, I'm just wanting to show people, hang on, that person isn't that far ahead of me, and look at the life that they live because of the decisions that they made. Yeah. So I want to give you guys the roadmap to how to get to that next level. And then, you know what, when you're at that level, I'll give you the roadmap to get to the next level. But if we try and look at these people that are like, you know, writing these big books, or, you know, have $1 million or $1 billion businesses, it's great to have those like top level mentors, super, super valuable to show you like the possibilities are endless. Yeah. But you struggle, or I struggle to relate to them because I'm like, okay, well, how do I make my first million?
That one,
You know, how do I do that?
100%.
And so that's the podcast side of things. I fucking love it. Like, funny enough, what's the date today, man? 24th. So on the 29th of this month, in just a couple of days, we will be 12 months of Before the Money.
That's crazy, bro.
It's fucking flown by. And on the story on that as well, before I talk more about mission for Anarchy moving forward, is Before the Money was such a split-second decision. So my girlfriend and I split up. Like I said to you earlier on the piece, we were together for 7 years. It was a mutual decision, very cordial, obviously painful because of the situation, but it was very respectful, and we're still like pretty good friends. And on that Wednesday, we split up on the Wednesday, and I was like, fuck, okay. The first thing that came to my mind was, I'm going to have so much free time now. Yeah. What am I going to do with it? Okay. So I was like, okay, well, I remember someone telling me in high school, you know, podcasts would be a good idea. But it was always one of those things that was like, I can't start a podcast. You know what I mean? Like, podcast is for people that like are good at shit, you know? So then I was like, okay, well, fuck it. Let's just do it and see what happens. And I came up with a name straight away. Before the Money was the first thing that came to my mind. Yeah. But then I was like, all right, I better write some more down just so, like, you know, I can't go with the first one. Yeah. So I wrote down like another 10 or so names. So I was like, nah, Before the Money works.
That's intuition right there, eh?
And then that Friday, so a day and a half after we split up, I was in the studio, recorded the first episode, and we dropped at least one every single week since then.
What was the first one? Was it just yourself?
It was my mate. His name's Reese, or goes by V Black. He's like a rapper and stuff like that. Yeah. He's on like Triple J and shit. Oh, yeah. He ended up actually being my co-host for the first 20 episodes.
Oh, crazy.
Until we had like a little bit of a misalignment of vision.
Yeah.
And like...
That happens, though, man. Like, that's unfortunately, especially... it would be nice to build things with your friends and stuff like that, but everyone has their innate mission and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's unfortunate, but man, it's part of the process.
It's part of the process, and like looking back on it now, the show has changed dramatically since it's been kind of like, it's always been my direction. I'd always did all the editing. I always booked the guests. But even just still, the dynamic of the episodes shifted a lot because we're very different mindsets as well. And it did add like awesome dynamic to it as well. But now, since then, it's really been able to dive into the optimization. And like, I find as well, having just two people in the room allows you to go deep into conversation.
Yeah, for sure. You know? I feel that,
so yeah, that we've gone through so many stages. But what I love most about the podcast on a selfish level is like, I now have a documentation of exactly how I was thinking every single week for the last 12 months and beyond.
I think about that too, bro.
Yeah.
It's something weirdly satisfying about it. It's just like, even in a short amount of time, like your mindset and what you speak about progresses really quickly
100.
when you feel like it hasn't. Like you've changed, but at the same time, your mind doesn't feel like it's changed, but your evolution of what your words that you're using and the way you speak changes quickly.
100. It's because like you think about it, right? The mind only has room really for like what it knows now and the position you are now. Like we could put ourselves in the shoes of us 12 months ago, but we're still doing it through the lens of who we are now.
Yeah.
So everything is skewed. Whereas when you're listening back to a recording of you 12 months ago, that is raw. You're almost like, who the fuck is this person I'm listening to right now?
100%.
You know, and it's sick. Like, I'm so excited for, 20 years down the track to have that database and stuff like that. And like, I could also talk about the stuff that I've learned and how I've grown and how my ability to articulate has grown. Like, when I listen back to first episodes, I'm like all this kind of shit.
How many arms are just the same, bro? It's crazy.
And like, I think about that all the time. And now because I'm conscious of it and because I listen to my episodes like probably sometimes 3 or 4 times. If I liked the episode, I'd listen to it 6 times.
100%.
And just be conscious of, all right, next time that situation comes up, I'm going to say it like this. I'm going to say it like that. I'm going to be conscious of how I say it. Oh, actually, I was rambling a lot when I asked that question. I could have literally just summed that up in 5 words and that would have been much more punchy.
Yeah.
So all these little things like self-reflection, you grow really quickly.
Yeah.
But where I'm heading. So what episode is this, by the way? I wanted to ask you. Or thereabouts.
I don't actually know.
Yeah.
THATFIT podcast, because we've got Fuck It Up Fridays, which is its own sort of podcast as well. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't actually know.
To be continued.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've been doing it for a minute, though, hey?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, sick.
4 or 5 months.
So you probably notice so much growth within your
crazy,
abilities.
Man. Especially if... rapidly too, especially if you do them enough as well. Like sometimes is 2 to 3 podcasts a week. The growth is rapid and stuff like that. So it's exciting, man. And that's the thing. Like, fuck it, it's endless. The opportunities are just crazy, and like you just feel grateful to do something like this. So, man, let us in on the purpose with Anarchy now, where the direction of that goes. Obviously, you've spoken about the rebranding and stuff like that. So, where would you like to see Anarchy 3-5 years from now?
Yeah. So I don't have that's not the way that I thought process.
Yeah. Okay.
Businesses.
What's your thought process with that?
So I work towards like missions. Basically, my life goal is to elevate the consciousness of humanity.
Okay.
And that stems back to my perspective on what anarchy is. I'm really working to, like, even a conversation like this, I know there's going to be, you're about to run out of battery, my dude. I know there's going to be a guy or a girl listening right now that is just one thing that either you and I have said is going to stick with them. Yep. And then they're going to have an encounter with either their mum, their dad, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, a complete stranger sometime next week, and they're going to know how to solve that problem because of this conversation. And that's a snowball
I think about
that changes their life, right? So that is what lights me up. So in terms of physical things, I'm working towards a warehouse at the moment where I'm going to build out a space where people, basically, myself 5 years ago could come in and be a super ambitious person with no direction and go, oh, all right, this place has a photography studio, they have a marketing team, they have 3PL fulfillment, they've got a podcast studio, I'm surrounded by creatives. Like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I need to be here.
Yeah, for sure.
You
That's
know?
fucking cool.
Yeah, and so eventually I'm going to have those all around the world.
Yeah.
Basically. So that's all I can comprehend right now, and the show is going to get bigger. I'm also planning on, as soon as I can get that space, I want to build out production, because I've found that I'm really, really good at marketing and producing podcasts.
Cool.
So I want to be able to take people, and I've done it. I've got another podcast, Don't Be Awkward, like that I was doing producing for a little while. Same kind of vibe, difference in direction. So that's kind of recently subsided, but nonetheless, it was cool to know that I could do the same thing for someone else's podcast as well.
Yeah.
So when I get the space, I want to make that a regular and build out a team that helps people, you know, like myself, that was back then was thinking I couldn't do a podcast, but I had all these ideas. Come and say, all right, this is my idea, this is the show I want to make. Can we make this happen? And then all of a sudden, you've got a hit show.
Wow. That's crazy, bro. Our camera's about to go flat, so
we'll wrap it up.
Thank you so much for coming through. I appreciate it. Check Jack's stuff out. Obviously, I'll get all his details. I'll put before the money and a key label. His personal Instagram and stuff. Check it out. I like your fucking shit. Like every morning, you got like little quotes and stuff like that on your stories and stuff like that, which is super cool. It's inspiring. It's, you know, helping everyone in some sort of way. So again, bro, thank you so much for coming on. Just before we do finish, man, what's one thing that you're grateful for today?
This.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, bro. Thank you for coming through. Thank you guys for tuning in. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Spotify, let us know. Hit that 5-star rating, because you know this episode was fire. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. But until next time, you guys know what to do. Stay fit, stay